Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shirade Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shirade Jaya Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Radha Shama Sundara Surade Jaya Radha Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya 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 Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paracharya, a Sautari Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Madhava ki jai, Sri Radha Shama Sundari ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande, all glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to the assembly devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Namaste Narashinghaya Prahlada Lada Daine Prahlada Lada दाहिने हिरण्यकाशी पूर्वक्षः हिरण्यकाशी पूर्वक्षः शीलातङ्कान कालाय पितो न सिंहो परतो न सिंहो पितो न सिंहो परतो न सिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो न सिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो न सिंहो बाह्ये न सिंहो हृदये न सिंहो बाह्ये न सिंहो हृदये न सिंहो नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरेणका अद्भुत शृङ्गार दलित हिरण्यकशिपु तनु भृङ्गा केशवदेता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे अद्भुत शृंगार ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनु भृङ्गा केशवदेता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय भक्त प्रहलाद प्रहलाद महाराज जय श्री राधे जय गौरानिता जय गौरानिता जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल गौरा Navishai Narsingadev Bhagwan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. On behalf of ISKCON founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, I would like to welcome all of you to ISKCON Naperville. Thank you all for coming. And as always, can you please move this way? The ladies can come on this side and men can go on that side. And please leave a space in front of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada so that your back is not turned against the Murti. Is there anyone here for the first time? And if so, can you please come forward and receive a small gift from us? You can give Mama. Yeah, you can. Where is that person? Someone here for the first time, please come and receive a gift from us. Okay, please. You can give it. Oh, please. Give it to Maharaj. Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your presence here. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Around Gita Jayanti celebrations for the weeks prior to that and after, we have been giving series of classes on Bhagavad Gita topic. And today we have His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj with us. He has been speaking on Gita values, another series of classes, and today's class will be on chapter 13, Bhagavad Gita. Oh, we changed it. How to live your life according to Bhagavad Gita. That is today's topic. Please give a warm welcome to Maharaj. Prabhu, can you please fix this thing?
I'm chased there already.
This is a song we like to sing because Prabhupada would sing at the beginning of our class. Just 8 different names of Krishna in Vrindavan. You can follow along responsively. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Vihara Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Kunya Vihari Gopijana Bhalabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jayo Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivijagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. There we go. Bhagavad Gita. The goal of life and Bhagavad Gita in our daily life. So I'll assume everyone has a basic idea of Bhagavad Gita, probably a safe assumption. Divine song of Bhagavan. Gita means song. Sometimes the Bhagavad Gita is translated into English as Song of God. Gita, Song of Bhagavan. And the speaker, Bhagavan, in this case is Krishna. And there are many different ways of describing what Bhagavad Gita is. It's treatise on yoga systems, plural. Because in Bhagavad Gita there's a ladder of one system of yoga, followed by the next system of yoga, followed by the next system of yoga, and there are higher stages following the preliminary stages, leading to the topmost stage. And those of you that like Bhagavad Gita, you'll know that the final verse of chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, so 6 plus 6 plus 6 generally is 18. So there's 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita, and at the end of chapter 6, there's a summary of what's been said so far. And that summary, Arjuna is asking questions of Krishna, and Krishna is supplying answers, and the answers are referenced in terms of yoga systems. So rather than going through the first 6 chapters, at the end, the second to the last verse, Krishna says to Arjuna, by all means, Arjuna, become a yogi. And of all the forms of yoga, there's one that's the Uttama, Yoga Uttama, the topmost system of yoga. And what's that topmost system of yoga? It has 2 parts. Madgatain Antaratmana, Antaratma, the Atma within, the Supreme Paramatma within. Madgatain Antaratmana, fix your mind upon me. And then with your senses, you engage in service to the master of the senses. Madgatain Antaratmana, Shraddhavan, with faith, Bhajate. Bhajate is a nice word. Bhajate means engage in service. Specifically, bhajate means practical activity. Because there's one idea of yoga that says, withdraw the senses. In fact, that's part of chapter 6, which this verse is at the end of chapter 6. The system of yoga where within that system of yoga you withdraw the senses is the Ashtanga yoga. Ashta means 8, Anga means limbs. Ashtanga yoga is the yoga where it has 8 parts or 8 limbs. And number 5 of those 8 is Pratyahara, where instead of extending senses out into the field around Prakriti, material nature, the subtle senses are consolidated within. Not literally that your arms recede inside your body or something like that. Your eyes go inside your head, ears disappear. It's not like that. It's the subtle sense is withdrawn, leading to 3 final stages of Madgatain Antaratmana, fixing your mind upon the Supreme. Dhyana Dharana Samadhi. So, bhakti is extending the senses into the field of activities and use your senses and the object of the senses in the service of the master of the senses. Bhajate. So the topmost yoga system has 2 parts. What the mind does and what the body does. And what the mind does is goes to Krishna. And what the body does is utilizes whatever there is that's appropriate for utilizing in service to the master of the senses, the master of everything, the master of existence, the Supreme, service unto the Supreme. That's the topmost yoga system. And to get there, there's this opening section of Bhagavad Gita where there's a battle that's about to begin. In this painting, we see Dhritarashtra on the left, who's like very anxious, we can see by this body language. He's really anxious to understand what's going on in the battlefield. He's not on the battlefield himself because he's blind. Dhritarashtra was born blind, and throughout his life he was blind. Long story, Mahabharata story. Long story. Should I tell the long story? Let's go to Bhagavad Gita. Ask me at the end, can you tell the story of Dhritarashtra, how he got blind? So he's unable to be a warrior on the battlefield, but he's very anxious that his sons would become victors in the battle. Because he couldn't become king because he was blind, at least my son should become king. But it wasn't by law, by Vedic law and by custom, that wasn't to be. But he wanted it anyways. And so there was this conflict between what he wanted and what the law was. And his sons were instruments of what he wanted, and they were pretty unscrupulous about how they went about it. And that was part of the problem of the war. So seated in front of him is Sanjaya. The whole of Bhagavad Gita is being narrated by remote television. In one sense, television. And television where it wasn't like the TV screen over here. Rather, by yogic process, Sanjaya had the ability, with his television within his heart, so to speak, he could see what was going on the battlefield remotely, and he could hear the conversation that was going on remotely, and he was narrating everything live, virtually, to Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya was a disciple of Vyasadeva, and a very qualified disciple at that. With his eyes open, he could see what was going on at a distant place and hear the conversation and report it to Dhritarashtra, live, TV, from within. High technology, much better than modern one. And as the scene opens, Sanjaya is narrating to Dhritarashtra the scene on the battlefield where the two armies are arrayed, and Arjuna, pictured right behind Dhritarashtra, is requesting Arjuna is requesting Krishna to draw the chariot between the two armies so he could see who's on which side. And when he sees the scene, he doesn't feel very good about it at all. He's a mighty person by training, as well as by his character, his quality. He's a Kshatriya. Trayate means to deliver, and Chat means from hurt. So he protects people from being hurt. And he's trained to do it. And he's really good at it. So it's his business, it's his occupation, it's his duty in life when called upon to give protection. But when he sees the whole battle scene, he speaks very virtuous reasons, because he's a virtuous person. He gives 7 different reasons why I can't go through with this. I'm out of here. And it's very high-sounding. You read, I remember first reading chapter 1 Bhagavad Gita, it's like, he's right. So what else is there to say and do? Then, why do you have 18 chapters? But his virtuous reasons are superseded by some other reasons, which is, what kind of book is this? What supersedes virtue? What's the book that's going to tell us what's superseding virtue? Well, there's higher principles. I mean, what's virtue resting upon anyways? What is dharma resting upon anyways? So that's a good question. What is to be done, what's not to be done, resting upon? there's a nice statement found within Srimad Bhagavatam that Dharma is established by Bhagavan. Remember, this is Bhagavad Gita. It's the song of Bhagavan. So Dharmam Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Pranitam means established. Dharmam Sakshat, self-same. Dharmam Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. This Bhagavan establishes Dharma. So there's the worldly sense of what's right and wrong, and then there's the Bhagavan sense of what is absolutely to be done. So that's a nice discussion. But let's move on, because there's a whole long discussion about it. And as it goes forward, Arjuna becomes bewildered, and he realizes, I really don't know what's meant for me to do in this situation. So we're the best of friends, because if you know the context of Bhagavad Gita is in the midst of this big epic. Many of you know all this. I'm just saying it. It's nice to hear it anyways. The history of Greater India. And it's like, it's history. And one way of saying what the history is the good guys and the bad guys. And then there's, the hero and the villain and the victim. The heroes are the Pandavas. The villain is Duryodhana. And right behind him is Dhritarashtra, his blind father, and his other cohorts. And then who's going to win? So Arjuna's, I'll take the side of the virtue, and I'll just tell you what, although we're entitled to the kingdom and so many other considerations, let them rule the world. I'll just go to the forest and become a mendicant. I don't need this. And he's bewildered. So he turns to Krishna, we're the best of friends. But let's stop this friendly conversation, and I now want you to be my guru. Please instruct me. Shishya. Shishya means instruct. Become my shishya. I'll become your shishya. You become my shiksha guru. You please instruct me. What's my duty? What is to be done? So the mood shifts. And as soon as that mood shifts, then Krishna begins instructing, and he starts chastising Arjuna. Friends may not chastise one another, but when the teacher may chastise the student. So you're speaking learned words, but you're lamenting for that which is destined to perish. You're lamenting for that which is not worthy of grief. An Aryan doesn't speak like this. An Aryan means one who knows the higher purpose of life. Arya. So then he gives him the higher purpose of life, which is the first topic. What's the goal of life? That's a good question, isn't it? What's the goal of life? Here we are. We'll see this image at the end. Well, I'll tell you what the image says. Then you recognize it when you see it. Over on this side, there's somebody looking with his back to you. Over on this side is a big image of a child in the womb. Over on that side is death. And in between is life. So what fits in between birth and death? What goes in there? With the human form of life, what's the purpose? What's the goal? What's our mission? Supposing you don't know, it's good to find out. Find somebody who knows. He knows that Krishna knows. So that's the higher purpose than the right and wrong and virtue. And what's the purpose of virtue? What's the purpose of anything? What's the purpose of life? Starting with knowing who you are. And then what do you do once you know who you are? Because part of knowing who you are is to know your relationship with the source of all things. And then all other things besides you, what's the source? And then connect to that source. That's yoga. So that's another way of describing what Bhagavad Gita is. It's a treatise on yoga, different systems of connecting with that which is the source of all things, including us. So here's a nice image. This is Krishna now turning with his hands on the chariot reins of the horses, speaking to Arjuna, Bhagavad Gita. And here's a nice little promotion of Bhagavad Gita. I'll let you read it. It's a universally known text. It's a wisdom literature. That's a nice way to describe Bhagavad Gita. How do wise people live their life? And if you want to be a wise person, learn from somebody who's wise. If you'd be wise, to learn from somebody who's wise, to learn how to be, what the goal of life is and how to live your life accordingly. So, one of the commentators that has written about Bhagavad Gita has a classic approach to understanding Bhagavad Gita. The classic approach is there are 5 main topics. So in this case, there can be other models. It doesn't have to be the number 5. But within Bhagavad Gita, this is a commentator named Baladev Vidyabhusan. And Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is dedicated to Baladev Vidyabhusan because he's followed his model of analyzing the 5 main topics. If you can understand these 5 topics, you can understand Bhagavad Gita because it's made of 5 different subject matters. And here they are. The first one is God, or Ishvara. And then there's the soul, or Jiva. There's material nature, or Prakriti. There's time, Kala, and fruit of activities, or karma. Pretty easy. Sounds pretty easy. Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and karma. Of these 5, 4 are eternal and 1 is temporary. Which one is temporary? Karma. But the other 4 are eternal. Now, with material nature, it's sometimes manifest, sometimes withdrawn. And that's depending upon time and the will of Krishna. He can withdraw, he can extend. But the material nature is eternal. Manifest, withdrawn, unmanifest. It's eternal. And the Supreme is eternal, the soul is eternal, and time is eternal. So we're going to spend some time on each of these 5 topics to get to, what the goal of life is and how to live your life accordingly. In everyday, modern times, it doesn't matter what era of mankind, principles are the same. So here's a nice BBT painting that's depicting Prakriti, starting with, this is chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. So at the bottom, the legs of this entity that's moving in space, that's earth, water, fire, air, and sky. That's 5. Earth, water, fire, air, and sky makes 5. So that's 5 gross elements. This is chapter 7, Bhagavad Gita. And then there's 3 subtle elements. The 3 subtle elements are mind, intelligence, and false ego. And Prakriti is made up of those 8. Bina, Prakriti, Ashtada. Ashta means 8. Bina, Prakriti, Ashtada. Separated energy. 8 in number. And aside from those 8, you see that little spark in the middle of the chest of that entity flying through space. That's the soul. That's the Atma. And side by side with the soul is Param Atma. So look, we just have 3 of those 5 topics just in this one painting. I mean, just not describing their interactions, but it's 3 of the 5 topics of Bhagavad Gita. Now let's focus a little bit first on the soul, and I'll share a little bit about the soul, something that I heard when I was a younger fellow, and I heard Prabhupada speak on more than one occasion that the soul is both conscious and consciousness. And it was one of those sound vibrations that sounded really cool, but I didn't really understand what he meant. But I heard it enough times that I started thinking it must be important because he's saying it again and again. So through gradual becoming familiar with Bhagavad Gita's message, here's an understanding. It's explained in the Upanishads in this way. Just like a lamp, that's the image, is a lamp, is both luminous and it lights up objects in the room like pots and plates. That's what it says in the Upanishads. So pots and plates, that's the objects that are out there. And what illuminates them is the lamp. So the lamp is both luminous and illuminates. Similarly, the soul is both conscious and consciousness. That is, consciousness of the soul extends out into the world around us. Depending upon how functionable your senses are, you can see things or hear things or that are remote. Like Sanjaya was seeing what was going on the battlefield, even he was sitting with the king, Dhritarashtra. So he had a subtle way, but consciousness extends out. So that's a very important truth, or tattva, jiva tattva. Truth about the jiva is the soul. The jiva is both conscious and consciousness. Let's say distinct from that is matter or prakriti. Matter, here's a nice table. It's a nice table, but it's not conscious. Why is it not conscious? Because there's no soul. Now imagine if there was you could inject a soul into that table. That would be an interesting procedure, but until the soul is there, it's not conscious, it's just matter. And the conscious entity can move matter. Somebody, a carpenter or somebody, whoever they made the table, there was a soul behind the making of the table. They just manipulated the ingredients, just like, this construction back here. It's ingredients. It's taken a long time because there's a shortage of supplies of materials for different reasons. But it's going up because there's a soul behind it. And ultimately there's a soul behind that soul. And that's like the Supreme Soul. Because without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, you can desire anything. You desire the wind to blow and it doesn't blow. You desire to get it warm in the winter, it doesn't get warm in the winter because you desire it. But with the Supreme Soul sanctions, then anything can happen. So behind that conscious entity that's within, there's also a supreme conscious entity. This is part of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, is a description of these two. There's the field of activity and the knower of the field of activity. There's a field of activity, prakriti, or kshetra. And then there's the knower of the field of activity, kshetra gya. Gya, that syllable, means to know. The knower of the field of activities, but there, in addition to the one entity that knows this field of activity, there's another that not only knows this one, but it knows all fields of all activities. All fields of all activities. That's Paramatma. Atma, Paramatma. Brahman, Parabrahman. There's a supreme knower of all fields of activities. Now, why is it that we don't know about the soul and the supreme knower of all activities? There's a very good reason. We're an illusion. And the illusion is identification with what we're not. Here's a real easy one. Supposing I'm a madman, or supposing there is a madman that says, I'm Napoleon. And I walk around with my hand in my vest like this. I'm a short guy and I'm Napoleon. I think I'm Napoleon. So I'm not Napoleon, but if I think I'm Napoleon, then I'm a madman. There's something, I'm misidentifying with something I'm not. And we're all doing that in different degrees, because what we're not is the material covering. What we are is the soul within the material covering. It's fundamental, but illusion in material existence is this program of identifying with matter. Here's an image I like, so I'll share you with it because I like images, as you can tell. Here's an egg, but inside the egg there's some light coming out of the egg, means there's something inside the egg that's not just the shell of the egg, but some other light source, but you kind of dim and only coming out through parts of that shell of the egg. The yoga system is to just take that which is the source of that light that's within the eggshell and bring it outside the eggshell. And there's the eggshell, still there, but then there's this luminous entity that's who we really are. And that's who we really are. We're the soul within the body. And there's nice characteristics from Bhagavad Gita, symptoms of the soul. The soul can be experienced or perceived by the presence of consciousness. Remember? The soul is both conscious and consciousness. So this presence of the soul can be perceived by the presence of consciousness. Say the opposite. Where there's no consciousness, the soul has departed. Many spiritual traditions of the world accept consciousness as being a symptom of the soul, because it is. It is a symptom. It's not. It is a symptom of the soul, and it is the soul. Just like the light of the sun and the sun. Now, there's a distinction between the light of the sun and the sun. For example, supposing it's not night but morning and there's sunlight coming through the window. So you can say the sun is in the room. But if the sun was in the room, we'd have a hot time. We'd all burst into flames. But if the sun is present through the light, you won't find sunlight without a sun. You won't find a sun without sunlight. You won't find a soul without consciousness. You won't find consciousness without a soul. They're inseparable. So the soul is both conscious and consciousness. And many traditions accept. They have different ways of describing what that is, but that's the soul. And at the time of death, the soul departs. So what's departed? The elements are still there, but there's something non-physical that's departed. Whatever that's something that's non-physical, and now consciousness is no longer exhibited, and therefore the functioning of the body is also stopped, is because something is left. That's what death is. Even in our language, we say, like, here's my sweater. And I'm not the sweater. Here's my hand, here's my leg, here's my head. There's the object and there's the possessor of the object. My body. There's the I and there's that which is the possessor or possessed by. So we're different than the body. That's all of this is to say lesson number 1 in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2. And then it's repeated again, and it's repeated again. And much of Bhagavad Gita is resting upon that fundamental, essential teaching. Supposing I'm a person that, I don't accept the authority of the Vedas. There are some people in the world that don't accept the statements of Scripture. They're the prove it to me people. I was just listening this morning to a lecture where Prabhupada was in he was in Mayapur, saying somebody had visited and somebody was asking, what's the proof of the soul exists? And he said, Prabhupada's answer was very simple, Shabda Praman. Some of you know these Sanskrit terms. Shabda is spiritual sound, or Shastra Praman, or Shruti Praman. Praman means evidence, or proof, or means of knowing something. Pramana, the means of knowing something. So you know from Scripture. But here's another way that some people have come to the conclusion of even that which they didn't want to come to the conclusion of, and that's out-of-body experiences. Most of us here, I'm probably are familiar with what that is. This is a painting from a Back to Godhead magazine article. There was a medical doctor at Emory University, a heart surgeon. And during heart surgery, the patient, pictured here on the table, had cardiac arrest. And there's a certain procedure that's to be followed when the patient, those EKG machines there show when the heart stops beating. And when the heart stops beating, what means is blood doesn't go to the brain anymore because the heart stopped. And so they have a procedure. And the procedure is they put these, whenever the electrodes or something, on the person's chest that sends an electric shock that artificially keeps the body moving as if the heart is beating when it has stopped. And it sometimes works. Sometimes it doesn't work. But it's like a jump start. So during cardiac arrest, the person may survive that heart attack, cardiac arrest. So this happened to one patient, and he survived. And they finished the procedure, and at the end, he went to see the patient the next day. And the patient said, he asked, how's it going? And the patient described in detail what happened during cardiac arrest. The assistant said to the doctor, da-da-da-da, and then the doctor said, da-da-da-da. And then by name, the other person said this and did that, and he described everything that happened exactly as it happened. He said, how did you know this? He said, I was watching from above. I was just watching, not only watching, but he was hearing. His senses, get the idea? The body wasn't functioning, the brain wasn't working. Consciousness is not the brain or the body. The subtle body carries the soul. And the doctor was like, this doesn't fit into our medical textbooks. So, long story short, he started doing a little research and asking other heart surgeons in Emory University Medical Hospital and other places, and came up with some 300 examples of physicians that had patients report to them the same thing. So then it became a little, how it is in America, you have to have an acronym for everything. It became OBE. It means out-of-body experience. And he wrote a book about it and said, it just doesn't fit into our medical science, but I can find no explanation. It's not proof. I can find no explanation other than the seat of consciousness, listen carefully, the seat of consciousness is not the body. The seat of consciousness is something else. And what's that seat of consciousness? It's the soul. Like, he said, I can't find any other explanation. He didn't want to admit it. It wasn't like he was an atheist, but he's a scientist, he's a physician. But I can't find any other explanation other than the seat of consciousness is something other than the body and the brain. And he's not the only one. Dr. Sarbam is his name. So I got interested in this. There's a lady in Seattle, another university hospital. She had the same thing happen, only Hers was really wild. The person, the out-of-body experience fellow, left the operating table, went up the ceiling, across the ceiling to the window, out the window, up 3 flights, and was stopped looking inside the janitor's closet from the outside, describing a pair of sneakers that were on the ledge outside the janitor's closet. And there were sneakers that had 2 different shoelaces and a little rip in one of the toes. And the patient described all this to her, and she was like, what? So she went and asked the janitor. She said, I keep this closet locked. You can't get in it. You can't see what's in it without the key. And this person described what was in it. Not only what was in it, but the ledge that you can't see from inside. But this out-of-body experience person saw a pair of sneakers sitting on the ledge that were exactly the way the patient, the out-of-body experience patient, saw it. She's like, what? Then she went through the same thing that Dr. Sambam went through, like, what's this? And asked around and came up with the conclusion that the seat of consciousness, and there's many such books. The out-of-body experience books are, where there was a trend for a while there. I don't know how popular they are anymore. It was like a big thing. It's a big thing. The seat of consciousness is not the body or the brain or the electrochemical events within the brain. They can measure that stuff. And when it shuts down, that's when the body shuts down, because the seat of consciousness left. Not proof. It could be some other explanation. You can be a doubting person and say, there's got to be another explanation. Some of you, not probably as much as I do, but some of you probably travel. And one of the places you might end up traveling to in the course of your lifetime is Los Angeles. And if you go to Los Angeles, I invite you ahead of time, please visit the ISKCON temple in Los Angeles. Over here, on the right side, is the temple. Deity is Rukmini Dwarkadish. Over on this side is a very fantastic, celebrated, well-visited Govinda's restaurant with a gift shop upstairs. And in between is what's called the first American theistic exhibit. It's got an acronym, FATE. First American theistic exhibit or exhibition. And it's dioramas or sculptures of depicting different things from Bhagavad Gita and Krishna book also. So this is one of them. And I've been to this place, so I'll tell you ahead of time what happens. You feel like you're in India. I say that because all of a sudden you go in front of this thing, and it's just a mylar mirror. Mylar mirrors, it looks like a mirror, but if with the light is the right way, you can see through it. So first it's a mirror, then light goes out. That's when you're in India. And then you hear this music, soft music, and then you hear a voice come on. And there's this light that's behind you that shines in such a way, it's a mylar mirror. You see you and all the other people standing in front of this mirrors with a voice, a British deep-sounding voice saying, "Who are you? Take a good look at yourself. Are you that body?" And then some other things. And then you hear the light goes out again. You're back in India. And then you hear this sound of a heartbeat. Thud, 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 thud. And a light shines on the living entity that's within the womb. And a light comes on in the heart of, or the area of the heart of that living entity within the womb. And there's description without all the narrative. And that spotlight fades, and it goes on to the next one. And then you hear the sound, the recording of little babies crying, whatever sound babies make. And then the music is going on, and then the music changes, and it's a little boy bouncing a ball, with little boy giggly talk, and it moves on to boys, the sounds match. The light from the previous moves, goes to the next, goes to the next. When it's this guy over here, he's bouncing his money bag, you hear the money bag bouncing. And then as he gets older, the fellow starts coughing, then he expires. And then the question is, where do you go after that? So the teaching of Bhagavad Gita is, just as, some of you like Bhagavad Gita, so you know the verse. Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhirastatya namoyati. Dhira means one who's undisturbed. The one who is undisturbed doesn't become bewildered by the fact that the soul is moving from babyhood to boyhood, from boyhood to youth, youth to old age. And just as deha antara praptir, a different deha is a body, antara is another one, prapti, you attain another body. Just as it happens during this lifetime, same thing happens at the final change of body. Instead of it being slow, it's very quick. In a moment, the soul leaves the body and goes to another. But during the lifetime, it's the slow change from one body to the next. So that's the soul and material nature and super soul. Here's a little bit more about Prakriti. This is a nice BBT illustration of the three modes of material nature. Yellow, red, and blue, or goodness, passion, and ignorance. According to Bhagavad Gita, the material nature is conducted, Prakriti is conducted by these three modes. And the image is showing three ladies that are like puppeteers. And then the puppets are being pulled by the strings of the puppeteers. And there's the laborer and the capitalist. Or some persons that think they're the controllers or being controlled, and they're both being controlled. And those controls are under the direction of Krishna. He's the controller of the controllers. Ishvara, Parama Isha. That's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's three topics. Now, a fourth is their activity, that the bottom, that's karma. Fruitive work. You do something to achieve something. That's karma. And this is soul moving through material nature under the direction of the three modes, supervised by the Supreme. Then comes another topic. Of the five topics, the topic that's spoken of the least is kala. But it's not unimportant at all. It's very important. Kala is a Shakti, or an energy, Kala Shakti. It's God's energy. It's the most powerful force in the material world. And in Kala, time destroys things. It's the ultimate among killers. In the transformations of material nature, you have to have time, otherwise things don't happen. So time moves in cycles. This is Bhagavad Gita summary. I hope you appreciate what we're doing here. Time moves in cycles. Picture it. Right now it's night. And then wait a while and it becomes day. And then wait a while it becomes night. And then so that's a day and night cycle. And then there's the season cycles. It's winter. But wait a while, and it'll become spring. Wait a while, it'll become summer. Then, so within the course of a year, there's seasons that cycle again and again and again. And then the years there's more cycles. There's smaller cycles and there's bigger cycles. But time moves in cycles. And with those movements of time, there's 6 transformations. This is Bhagavad Gita teaching. There's birth, there's growth, there's producing byproducts, that's 3. Birth, growth, producing byproducts, dwindling, and death. Maintenance for some period of time. Dwindling and death. 6. Movements of time. Krishna says in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, time I am, the destroyer of all things. Under the influence of eternal time, because in the spiritual world, time is there, but it's eternal. But eternal time moves the material nature, temporary material nature, and it brings about these changes. So I'm going to entertain you for a little bit. I hope you like being entertained. I'll stop talking for a bit and somebody else is going to do the talking. It's a little video of the Vedic planetarium. Some of you that are newer may not have heard about this. So I'll just share with you. In West Bengal, not far from Calcutta, is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Mayapur. There's a very large property with a very large temple, and the feature of this temple that's not completed yet, just like back here it's not completed yet, but soon. And in Mayapur there's a temple that's also under construction, and it's taken a good number of years because one of the projects is to have a 3-dimensional moving display that depicts the cosmic manifestation as described in the Vedas, or Vedic cosmology, or the structure of the universe in 3-dimensional moving model. So there's going to be a whole, like, above a temple, above a deity, there's a dome. So one of the 3 domes is going to be the planetarium. And what you're going to see is a model. That it's the narrator is the person. It's Antar Dweep is his name. He's from Australia. You'll pick up on his accent right away. And he's describing through this video a model of time as time is moving the cosmic manifestation. Specifically, time is moving on a chakra or a wheel of time, and the sun, listen carefully, you'll hear it, the sun is moving on the wheel of time. This is the Vedic depiction of what's going on up there in the sky. There's a wheel of time that's moving, and I'll say it slowly, and then you'll hear him say it fast, but so you'll be prepared to catch what he's saying. The sun is moving clockwise direction very fast. Mounted on the wheel of time, the sun is moving in 24 hours, 360 degrees on the wheel of time. That's day and night. And there's another movement of the sun that's moving very slowly in a counterclockwise direction, as on a chariot. Oh, wait a minute. What's this fellow up here saying? Shukadev Goswami is asked the same question. I'm just repeating from 5th Canto Bhagavatam. You said, Shukadev Goswami, you said the sun is moving in a clockwise direction on the wheel of time. Very good. But you also said the sun is moving in a counterclockwise direction. Could you explain? And he gives a very simple example. It's too simple, you have to read it 6 times. What's he saying? Supposing you have This is the answer that was given by Shukadeva Goswami. Supposing you have a potter's wheel, and on the potter's wheel there's some ants. And because the potter's wheel is moving quickly in a clockwise direction, the ants are moving quickly in a clockwise direction. That's easy. But supposing the ants simultaneously are walking very slowly in a counterclockwise direction. So you can say they're moving in a counterclockwise direction, while you can also say they're moving in a clockwise direction. And so the wheel of time moves like that because the sun, you'll see in this video, is the sun god is riding in a chariot that's drawn by horses that are moving in a slowly 1 degree every 360 days, making 360-degree circle, once 1 degree every day. So that accounts for the seasons. And this accounts for the day and night. It's the movement of Kala Chakra. If you don't understand it, it's quite okay. But this is the topic that's in Bhagavad Gita. This video, what's being depicted in this video is not in Bhagavad Gita. It just mentions the time energy moves to bring things into being, maintains things for some times, and then withdraws and dissolves things. The movement of time does all that. But in case you're interested, maybe one day you'll visit Mayapur. And if one day when you visit Mayapur they've completed this exhibit, you can say, oh, I saw that. He showed it on a video the other Sunday program. Okay, so here goes. It's going to move quickly, so be ready.
So at the bottom of the planetary display we have Shesha holding up the earth. This is Shesha, the empowered incarnation. There we have Ananta speaking Bhagavatam to the 4 Kumaras, and above the 7 subterranean planets. Here we can see Jambudvip, the central island of Bhumandala, and Bharatvarsha is situated on the southern side of that. There's 8 other Varshas, with Ilavrita Varsha in the center, various supporting mountains with large trees upon them, described in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the very center of Ilavrita Varsha is Mount Meru, Golden Mountain. Atop Mount Meru are the cities of important demigods, Lord Brahma in the center, 8 Dikpalas in the cardinal directions and sub-directions. Moving out, we can see the broader Bhumandala, 7 concentric islands and oceans surrounding them. The 7th of these islands is Pushkaradweep. On that island is Manasotra mountain, and on the mountain there is various cities of demigods such as Indra. Out further is Lokaloka mountain. These large elephants stand atop Lokaloka mountain to balance Bhumandala. Outside of Lokaloka mountain is Aloka Varsha, which is dark. The rays of the sun and the other luminaries extend up to Lokaloka mountain. On Manasotra mountain here on Pushkaradweep, the sun travels above this mountain at the southernmost point of its annual orbit. Above Bhumandala is Bhuvaraloka, which is the residence of the Charanas, Siddhas, Yakshas, Gandharvas, and above there is Swargaloka, beginning from the sun and extending up to the pole star Dhruvaloka. This is the moving part of the planetary display. Here we can see the sun and the moon moving in their chariots. The chariots are being drawn by horses moving in the anti-clockwise direction, but they're traveling with the wheel of time, moving in the clockwise direction faster, so it looks as if they're moving backwards. Above them the zodiac of stars, more planets, and another realm of stars. So here we can see everything moving with the Kala Chakra, circumambulating the axis that connects Mount Meru with Dhruvaloka. Above these planets, we come to the planet of the 7 sages, the Saptarshi. You can see them here. They're commonly known as the Big Dipper, and then Dhruvaloka, the pole star. On the ocean of milk situated there, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who is the Paramatma within everyone's heart, he resides on Anantashesh. Moving up beyond there, we have Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. In this video, we haven't included many of the details for there, but on Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, we have residences of the Lord, such as Lord Varaha, Lord Vamana, and so on. Here's Brahmaloka, and on Brahmaloka, we also have a form of the Lord, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, as the Sahasrashesha Purush. Beyond there is the 7 coverings of the universe, earth, water, fire, etc. And outside of the universes is the abode of Lord Shiva, Shiva Loka. There he resides eternally. Beyond Shiva Loka, we come to Mahavishnu, Karanodakashaya Vishnu, with innumerable universes that have emanated from the pores of his transcendental body. Here you can see him being served by Rama Devi. Then we come to the Brahmajyoti, the effulgence of the Lord's transcendental body. Penetrating through the Brahmajyoti, we come to the Vaikuntha planets. We're showing 24 planets of the Vaikuntha realm in this model. The Lord, with 4 arms, is holding the conch, disc, club, and lotus, and the various combinations of those 4 make 24. Then we come to Goloka Vrindavan. Here we can see Radha Madhava, but we'll also be showing the other primary rasas. Krishna with the cowherd boys, Krishna being served, Krishna with Mother Yashoda. So this is an overview of the planetary display to be shown in the main dome of the temple.
You might have to listen to this about a dozen times to pick up on some of the details. But as you become familiar with the details, it's like anything. You know, driving a car. The first time you got behind a driver's wheel to drive a car, it was probably perplexing. And practice and practice and practice. So this becomes what the message that you just saw, the purpose, as you see at the heading, is Kala Chakra. What Kala is time, Chakra is wheel. So the wheel of time is moving, and it's making day and night and seasonal changes, etc. And that's from our experience on the earthly realm. And then there's realms above the earthly realm according to the Vedic model of the structure of the universe. And time is also moving there. Okay, so that's a very important topic amongst the various topics of Bhagavad Gita. And now it's not going to work. Wait for the program to respond. Restart the program. It just quit. Okay. Ta-da. So there's that image I told you about at the beginning. There's birth and there's death and there's what's in between. It's called life. And then what's the purpose of life, and then what's the problems in fulfilling the purpose, and there's lots of problems and not so much clarity about purpose. Here's a purpose. Who am I? What is the standard of true happiness for yourself personally? Not just a textbook answer, but what's your personal purpose in life? Am I simply living the expectations of others? And then the problems. And this is our last slide. You will have received, and if you haven't gotten a copy, see Amrita Kelly. Can you wave your arm? Amrita Kelly. Where is she? Oh, just put your hand up. If you didn't get a copy of this, see her. She'll see that you get a copy. It will work on your computer. It's a PDF, and if you click here's the list of problems, and then if you click on one of those blue lines there that says where in Bhagavad Gita it talks about, let's say, anger. Maybe you know somebody that has an anger problem. Of course you don't, but maybe you know somebody that does. And then you can give them a Bhagavad Gita message about controlling their anger by clicking on one of those blue, you know how you do that? You click this one and it'll take you right to the page. Take you right to the page. Because it's a digital entity, it takes you to Veda base, which is a link. There's a link to Veda. Veda base is where you can find Bhagavad Gita and lots of other nice things that are BBT publications. And it'll tell you what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita about stuff, about problems of life and how to address the problems of life. So, if you want to know what Bhagavad Gita says about these things, Amrita Kelly will help you out. At least we give you a copy of the PDF. She may not be able to explain it all, but she'll give you the PDF. And you can read what Krishna says about these solutions to problems in life. And we are here offering our respects to Srila Prabhupada, whose Murti is back here. Here we see a nice image of Prabhupada with the mudra of he is giving knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to anyone who wants to hear it, and even some people that are not sure they want to hear it, but he gives it anyways because he's very merciful. And for those of you that may not have a Bhagavad Gita, there's a place you can get a Bhagavad Gita. This is just a show and tell. Where are the Bhagavad Gitas available? Who can say? This young man over here will help you find a Bhagavad Gita if you don't have one. There's a table downstairs. Okay? So let's see. Do we have time for some discussion, or we ran out of time? We ran out of time. So thank you very much for coming for the Sunday program and for being very patient, allowing me to talk over time. Srila Prabhupada ki? Jai. Bhagavad Gita ki? Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna devotees, His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj is in town for the next week and the following week until Tuesday. Maharaj is continuing to speak on topics taken from Bhagavad Gita. Christmas retreat is happening. His Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj is conducting this. The topic is personalities from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and this is beginning on December 23rd, Friday, then Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It will end on Monday 26th. If you go to our website, you can find the registration link, and we invite all of you to come and participate. The next thing that is happening here is Bhakti Immersion Winter Camp. That's happening from January 2nd through 6th. Registration is still open. Again, it is available on our website. The same topic for children, age 5 through 12. Maybe we will accept until 13 years old or so. But the topic is the same, personalities from Chaitanya Charitamrita. You can register your children on our website. January 1st, every year, we chant the Maha Mantra here in the temple and record it. This year, we are planning for a much more elaborate program because in anticipation for the opening of our new temple, which is happening April end, which is the Akshaya Tritiya weekend. So please come on January 1st. His Holiness Radhanatha Swami Maharaj has given second initiation to 6 candidates during this past week. These are devotees who serve here in Naperville Center. Their names are His Grace Krishna Murari Das Prabhu and Krishna Murari Das Prabhu's wife Rasika Kumari Devidasi. Then Gadadhar Chandra Das Prabhu and Sundari Leela Devidasi. Damodar Leela Prabhu and Shriji Leela Devidasi. As we have been doing for the past couple of months, today I would like to express our appreciation to a devotee. We just handpick one devotee every week. His name is Naresh Patel Prabhu. Is he here? Naresh Patel Prabhu. Please come. How many of you do not know Naresh Patel Prabhu? Can I see a show of hand? Okay. So this is why we are introducing you to our devotees who are serving in this temple. Naresh Patel Prabhu has been practicing Krishna consciousness and has been serving in this temple over 5 years. He is part of our cooking team, cleaning team and shopping team, and you can see him anytime he comes here, and he is very actively involved in cleaning the temple. And not only does he clean, he brings all the cleaning supplies also, and we don't even need to ask him. He is always willing to come and help us. He is also part of temple's festival team. He has a master's degree in chemistry, and he works in a chemical plant near Joliet. And his wife, Janaki Mataji, also, and his mom and his 2 sons, they all live in Naperville. They are all always eager to serve Sri Radha Madhava and in this temple. And wonderful devotee. We really, really appreciate your presence here, Prabhu. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Today's Sunday feast is sponsored by 4 different families, Deepak Chowdhury and Neha Narula, in memory of their father, Pada Sevak Das Adhikari. I am assuming that he must be an initiated devotee. He passed away, and this is his death anniversary. Is this family here sponsoring Sunday feast? Not here. Okay. And Hemalata Meena, her husband Aditya Gupta's 44th birthday. Family is here. Can you please come and receive please give. Maybe Maharaj can give. Please receive from Maharaj. Naresh and Janaki Patel celebrating Arav's birthday. Please come and receive the prasadam. Please. Banita Goyal requesting devotees' blessings on Kritika and Ritika Goyal's birthday. Are they here? Benita? They are not here. They are also very active in serving in this temple. I know that Benita must be, he went through some health issues. Probably she is not here. But whether we are celebrating birthday or remembering someone who left their body, we chant the holy names of Krishna. So kindly repeat after me. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And other than that, as always, we deeply appreciate the Sunday Feast cooking team and cleaning team. I don't have their names here, but I heard that the cleaning team needs 2 more people to help. If it is possible, please extend yourself. I think Sumangala Devidasi has something to announce.
I'll make it quick. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for being here on this Sunday, even though it is very cold outside. Just wanted to give a quick update about the fundraising from the last 2 weeks. We raised $46,000 in the past 2 weeks. One of the donation is $25,000 from a non-congregation member who is dedicated and also committed to bring us 200K more coming up. And that brings for this entire month, that brings around $85,000 that we raised from the beginning of this month. But there is still a shortage. Every month the clock is ticking, like Maharaj said. The time is running, and I have my own special timer. That is every month 31st there is a timer for me. We need to pay the installment for the builder. And that amount is not a small check, it's a big check. At least every month we need to pay 350K. And also this month we are installing the kitchen appliances. That is also a big amount, because when we are growing big, we need special appliances like making special rotis, special machines, mixing, cutting vegetables. Lot of special equipment being installed in the kitchen. So that is also, we have to pay for this month, because the installation delivery dates are this month. So there is a huge shortage this month. That 84K, it seems positive, but when I see the whole amount that we need to pay, that's nowhere close. At least a minimum of 400K we need to raise. So I'm requesting each and everyone, please pray, and also reach out to each and every friends of yours. The Vitala Brick, Madhavi is here. If you can raise your hand, Madhavi. Please reach out to her. You can start the Vitala Brick with just $108, the minimum you can pay in installments, It's just $1,000 per brick. So it's a good service, a year end, people are, it's a giving time, So reach out to all your friends and families, and do remember this number, we need to raise more than 400K this month. So I'm requesting all devotees here, please pray and reach out to your friends and families. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.